Dr. Pipes, thanks for getting together here in Minneapolis. I brought along one of my favorite of your books with me on the Rushdie affair from a few years back. Would you give us your thoughts on the trends in blasphemy and the Ayatollah and current events?
My pleasure. Back in 1989, when the Ayatollah imposed his edict on Rushdie, what one saw were two things. One, that a lot of governments, artists, and others stood up for Rushdie and said this was an outrage to have an Iranian political leader say that Rushdie and others who created the Satanic Verses novel, publishers, editors, should be put to death. He had widespread support. On the other hand, he was isolated. There was no one else doing anything like what he did. He was all by himself. He was a single, solitary target. Skip forward over 2 decades later, and you see that governments, intellectuals, artists are much weaker than they were back then, more inclined to appease than they were back then. On the other hand, ordinary folk have taken up his cudgels, and in some striking instances have decided, okay, you want to talk about blasphemy? I'll show you what blasphemy is. One has cartoons, one has Quran burnings, one has movies, all sorts of developments aimed at telling Muslims, Islamists in particular, that they can't suppress discussion or even mocking of Muhammad. So these two contrary developments, and I think in the end what we see here is a really deep conflict over whether the world's going to work along the lines that we're used to, of freedom of speech, including about religious figures, or whether it's going to work along the lines of Islam and certain topics are off bounds and may not be discussed. Stay tuned. There's no clear outcome at this point.
Thank you very much.